want to discuss, especially with application of pseudo force. Okay. Okay, so let's start with this example. So we have a situation like this on a smooth horizontal surface. There is a triangular wedge like this. So this triangular wedge is of mass capital M and this angle is theta. And this surface is also smooth. And now there is a smaller block of mass small m just placed on this wedge like this, and we are pushing the whole system with some external force horizontally in this direction. So these are the given values. This is 20 kilograms. The smaller block is 5 kilograms. And the angle theta is 37 degrees. Okay. Take the value of G as 10 meters per second square. So now what the question is saying, that it is observed that as the system is being pushed by external force F, okay, the small block does not slip. Okay, with respect to the inclined surface of the wedge. So we want to find out first of all the acceleration of the wedge and the force F in newtons. How much force we are applying externally to make this happen. Okay, so first of all, try to understand how this is possible, that even though it's on a smooth inclined surface, it is not slipping down because you're pushing the system from the left. So as the wedge moves towards the left, there should be a pseudo force acting on the block towards the right, because it is.
Sir, a pseudo force of cos theta will be directed towards sin theta will be directed to the opposite m, no?
That you have to work out better. Remember, pseudo force's direction is opposite to the acceleration. So which direction the wedge is accelerating in? Left, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, the first part of the question directly we have to apply F is equals to m, you know?
Yes. No, the first part, see, that's what you have to understand. You have to find the acceleration of the wedge so that the block does not slip with respect to the wedge. So think about that first, okay? If the wedge is accelerating with A, how much should that A be so that the block remains at rest? So make the FBD of the block in the wedge's frame first. No, these questions, Shrishti, are not necessarily from H.C. Verma. Similar type of questions, okay? H.C. Verma will be discussing doubts of the questions, some of the questions.
Sir, done.
Okay, so please send me the answer in the text message. How much is the acceleration that you're getting? First part's answer.
Sir, I first found out the force and then found the acceleration.
So how much is the force? Send it to me in the text message, please. The numerical value. Send me the numerical answer in newtons in the text message, because others might be trying to solve the question in the meantime. Unfortunately, Krish, the answer is not correct. Maybe there is some calculation error you made. So we will start the question this way, that if you assume that the wedge is accelerating towards the left with an acceleration A like this, then in the frame of the wedge, the block is at rest. Okay. So now we'll make the FBD of the block. Okay. Relative, or you can say in the frame of the wedge. Now the wedge will become a non-inertial frame because it's traveling with an acceleration like this. So in this non-inertial frame, okay, so traveling like this, then first of all there will be the pseudo force acting on the block, which will be in this direction. Then there is weight, and then there is the normal contact force. Okay, so three forces are acting: pseudo force, the normal reaction, and the weight. This is the inclined plane, so the normal reaction is perpendicular to this. The inclined plane is at theta to the horizontal, so this angle will be theta. Again, this angle will be theta. So next you can resolve the forces. Okay. So on resolving the forces, you can see that you will have components of weight like this, mg cos theta and mg sin theta. You'll have the components of pseudo force like this, ma cos theta and ma sin theta, and you'll have the normal reaction. So these are the forces after resolving along these sort of axes. So in this frame, the object is at rest with respect to the non-inertial frame. So you want to balance the forces. Okay. So now balance the forces and find out the value of A from here. Okay, so people, hope you've understood this free body diagram. So in this, you can see the condition for. Okay, Rishita, no problem. So the condition for this acceleration or this force to balance. Okay, so you can just write down this question first, Rishita, since you just joined.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I've taken a screenshot so you can proceed.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing, see what we are doing in this question is we to find the condition for the block to remain at rest with respect to the wedge. Yeah, see Ethan, it's very simple. The wedge is moving with an acceleration E with respect to the ground, and in the frame of the wedge, the block is at rest. So the block is actually moving along with the wedge with the acceleration E in ground frame. Okay, so in ground frame, what is happening is that the wedge plus the block kind of stuck on it are moving at acceleration E. But in the wedges frame, the block is at rest. So we are finding the condition for this to happen. Now the condition for this is over here below. That is in this FPD.
Sorry, MA cos theta that you have marked in the FPD is equals to the pseudo force, no? Means
Yes,
if you
small m is
cos
the mass of the block. And Siddharth, just to answer your question, that is not in fact the case. We have defined pseudo force very clearly. Pseudo force is equal to minus ma naught in general, where m is not the mass of the body on which the body is there. M is the mass of the body whose free body diagram we are making, whose FBD is considered. Okay. And E naught is not the acceleration of that body, but E naught is the acceleration of the non-inertial frame in which we are making the FBD of this block or of this body of mass M. So here the non-inertial frame of the wedge has an acceleration E, whereas the block whose FBD we are making is of mass small m, that is at rest, okay, in that frame. So these are the forces acting on it: pseudo force, weight, and normal reaction. So the condition for the block to remain at rest is that pseudo force's cos component should be able to balance mg sine component. That is what will keep it from sliding down the inclined plane. So the acceleration of the wedge has to be g tan theta. So that is in this case 10 tan 37 degrees. So that's 10 into 3 by 4 or 7.5 meters per second square. So when we look in the ground frame, the wedge should be moving at 7.5 meters per second square, and the block should be as if it is stuck on the wedge. It's moving along with the wedge without slipping with respect to it. So this is the required acceleration of the wedge so that the block does not slip.
so in that equation instead of MA I directly put a F over there, so I got wrong a bit.
But you can understand that F is not acting on the block. F is acting on the wedge. Okay. What is acting on the block is only pseudo force, its weight, and normal reaction. These three things. Okay. Now one more equation which you can get from here, which is not necessary, but which is also coming from this FBD, is that normal reaction is equal to the sum of mg cos theta plus ma sin theta. This is like a second equation, but we are not going to use this equation, so I have not written it initially. So my job was to initially just find the acceleration E. Okay. Now the next part, I want to find the force I'm applying on the wedge so that I get this acceleration, so that the block does not slip with respect to the wedge. So to find out that force, we will use a small trick now.
So it was not done.
Sorry?
So writing.
Yes, beta, any doubt?
Sir, she is saying that it was not written the above one.
Ajay, you have not completed writing. Okay, finish that first. Okay, done, finished writing this now? Okay, so let's move on. Yes, so now as I was telling you, for the second part to find F, we obviously now have to make the free body diagram of the wedge. But this is where we use a trick and pay attention to what I'm saying. One option is that we can make the FBD of the wedge, okay, in the ground frame, of course. But why I'm saying it's one option, because when we consider that option, there is one extra thing that we'll have to consider, and that is a normal contact force between the block and the wedge. So that will mean a little bit of extra solving. Okay, so that's why I will avoid this. But let me just show it to you how it will first look. So if I'm in the inertial ground frame, okay, so with respect to this frame, this is moving with an acceleration, which I've already found out. Now, what are the forces acting on the wedge? There is F, very good. We want to find that out. There is its own weight mg, which is known to us. So that's also okay. There is some kind of contact force which the ground is applying. That's also okay because that's vertical. But the problem is there is this normal reaction that the block is applying on it. So I'll have to take this into consideration. Okay. So this is the normal reaction. Let's say that the floor is applying. This is its own weight, and this is the force F. And now we'll have to consider this now. So we'll have to make the FBD after resolving all these forces. So you'll see that this normal reaction, first we'll have to resolve this. So this angle will be theta here because this angle is theta. Okay. And of course there is F, there is capital Mg, and there is normal reaction that the floor is applying, and this acceleration is A like this. So ultimately we'll get an equation like this, that F minus n sine theta is equal to capital Ma. That will be our third equation. And from equation 2, we'll have to bring the value of n. So we'll have to solve equation 2 that we have done earlier. Okay, from there. but we have an option. So the option we have is instead. Okay, so this is a very good trick, that instead of this, okay, since the block small m and the wedge capital M move together, okay, like one single object. In this case, why? Because we have already applied the condition that the block is not slipping with respect to the wedge. So they are moving together like one object. Okay. So therefore, we can make an FBD for the combined mass of the block plus the wedge. So we make a FBD for the combined mass of the block plus wedge. Then I'll bring you back to the earlier page, but then the advantage you'll understand is that we don't need to consider that normal contact force, because now this is part of our system. So on this, there are only these external forces acting. And this whole system in the ground frame is moving with that acceleration E. So you don't need to do anything else. Now you can see that there's only one single horizontal force acting, but now my system is not just capital M, it is capital M plus small m. So it's the total weight, the normal direction of the floor, and this system has an acceleration like this. Okay. So this is the combined FBD. The block plus the wedge. So that thing looks much easier to solve. So here we just have the equation that F is equal to M plus M E. This can be our third equation. Now from equation 1, we have seen that E is equal to G tan theta. So that was 7.5 meters per second square. So F will just become the sum of the masses into this combined acceleration. So 25 into 7.5. So that will be how much now? 25 into
187.5.
yeah. So that's 25 into like 3 by 4 of 10. No? So 250 into 3 by 4. So you get this as 187.5 newtons. Okay. So this is the much easier option. Now I will just minimize this and show you the contrasting free body diagram that we could have made just for the block, sorry, just for the wedge alone. But by looking at the free body diagram itself, you'll understand that that is a more lengthy thing to solve. So it is avoidable. You don't want that. Just a minute. Yeah, so we want to avoid that complication. So it is just easier to go with this now. So instead of this option, we are now exercising this option. We have to find the force that we are applying on the wedge. No? The force is ultimately acting on the wedge. Okay. So whether we find that force by making the free body diagram of the wedge alone as an object, or the wedge plus the block as a combined mass because they're moving together, that is up to us. How we calculate it by using which of the two FBDs does not matter. No? The F has a particular value which is independent of which FBD we use. But the first method which I've not solved is the more complicated method, because we'll have to substitute the value of 10 from equation 2 earlier that we had written in the above FPT. Whereas the second method that I've shown is comparatively easier, because you're considering the combined objects, so there is no contact force between them coming into play. Okay, so note this down and finish this quickly. We have more questions to discuss after this also. Okay, so Okay, the screen should be back online now. Just gone offline for a minute. Okay, so hope this question is clear to all of you. Now we will discuss some further examples. Now the next thing we'll discuss is a different type of constraint relation, and this is something called a wedge constraint. Okay, so let me explain. Earlier we discussed about constraint in relations involving pulley systems. Okay, where multiple pulleys are involved and the thread length conservation happens. So those are the thread length conservation type of constraint relations. Now we will discuss another type of constraint relation. Involving something called wedge constraints. So let's understand what wedge constraints are first. So very basic example of this is something like this. Suppose we have, this is the corner of a smooth wall and a smooth floor. So this is a vertical wall which is smooth. This is horizontal floor which is smooth. And now we have got some kind of a triangular wedge sitting on the floor. And this angle is theta. And what we also got is this. We have got like a rod which we have cut in a shape such that this part of the rod fits exactly here, and this section of the rod is a vertical cut. So this could be a cylinder or a rod which is cut in this way. So it's something that was a cylinder like this originally, but then we have cut it like this using a plane which is making an angle theta with the horizontal. So now we have got a cylinder which has a vertical face on this side. On this side, it's got this kind of a face. It's a plane surface, but at an angle theta with respect to the horizontal lines. So it fits onto the wedge perfectly like this. Okay. So this is of mass m1 and this is of mass m2. Now what is happening is at some point of time, this wedge is sliding at some velocity v2. So this rod will be sliding down vertically at v1. So if theta is equal to 53 degrees and v1 is equal to, let us say, 1.2 meters per second, then we have to find what the value of v2 will be, the horizontal velocity of the wedge at that particular instant. So the relationship between v1 and v2 is what we call the constraint relation here. The mathematical relationship between v1 and v2 will come from what we call the wedge constraint. And the wedge constraint is basically that the surface of the wedge is at theta with respect to the horizontal. So this is the constraint. Now let's see how we will convert this constraint into a constraint relation. That is the relationship between v1 and v2. Okay, so just make a note of this first, then we'll discuss. So actually, when we discuss it, we'll see it's more like a geometrical constraint really. The geometry of the wedge is such that that surface is making theta with the horizontal. So that kind of thing. The wedge is a triangular block beta. Typically, a wedge is a large size object like that. Okay, so just a moment, the whiteboard, be sharing it in a moment. Okay, so the wedge is M2 in this case, and the rod is M1. Okay, so how we'll find the constraint relation now? Let's understand. So it's basically, as I told you, it's a geometrical constraint. So let's say that right now at some time t, this is the position of the wedge as I'm drawing it here. And this is the position of the rod, cut cylinder or whatever, which I'm drawing over here. Now, because of the presence of the wall, what will happen is this will come down sliding vertically between the wedge and the wall. That is, M1 will come down sliding vertically. Whereas because the floor is supporting the wedge will move horizontally. So after a certain amount of time, let's say the wedge has reached here. So it's perfect. Move this a little bit more. So that it's reached like this. So by now you realize that the rod would have come down and reached somewhere here. So this is the new position of the system after some time delta t, whereas this was the original position of the system at t equal to t. So during this time, you can see that the wedge has made a horizontal displacement, which is like this, let's say x, and the rod has made a vertical displacement, which is y, and the relationship between x and y is again to do with theta. can see in that diagram, if this is the downward displacement of the rod and this is the horizontal displacement of the wedge, then they are related such that this angle is theta, so this angle is theta. So what is happening is from t equal to t equal to t plus delta t, the wedge has a horizontal displacement x and the rod has a vertical displacement. It's vertically downwards. Such that because they remain in contact, as you can see in the above diagram, tan theta is equal to y by x, or y is equal to x tan theta. Here theta was 53 degrees. So y is equal to 4 by 3x. So this in itself is our constraint relation. Now, since the wedge is moving with V2 like this, and the rod is moving with V1 like this, so you can see that dx by dt is V2, and dy by dt, the rate of change of downward displacement, is the downward velocity V1 of this. So you can see that relationship between these two is that V1 is equal to 4 by 3. Simple. So this is the constraint relation. This type of relation is called a constraint relation. But in this case, it's what we call a wedge constraint. Okay. So this is the one type of question that HC Verma doesn't have too many of. Okay, but the questions in your module exercise which are based on this, okay. Especially for JEE, this is important. Okay. Not so much maybe for NEET or even JEE mains for that matter. Okay. But typically, if you're doing questions at JEE advanced level, now even NEET exam physics can have 2 or 3 questions in the entire paper which are of higher standard. So if in that particular year the higher standard question is from Newton's laws of motion, you can get something which is wedge constraint relation, but it's little unlikely and rare. Whereas for JEE advanced type, there is a standard type of question you know how to solve. Yeah, I'll come to the second diagram and again zoom in. So for this, all the aspects come. Yes, that's true, Siddharth. So now, for example, if we have another type of problem where we want to find the acceleration of the two blocks. So we can differentiate this once more and find the acceleration. So as a second part of this question, suppose given that the masses of the two are like this, find the accelerations of the wedge and the rod of M1. Okay, so if we come down to the accelerations now, we'll see that we'll have to use the same constraint relation. So if these are having instantaneous velocities v1 and v2 at some point of time, they will also have accelerations. This one will be accelerating a2 like this, whereas this one will be accelerating a1 like this. So differentiate this one more time and we will get a1 is equal to 4 by 3 a2. So for working out the next part, this will become the first equation actually. We will use this as the first equation, which is the constraint relation. And then of course we'll make the free body diagram. So on the wedge's shape was a little different. Just a moment to restart that and share it again. Yeah, so the wedge's shape It's more like this. Now the wedge will be experiencing a normal force from the rod like this, some normal reaction from the floor or the ground like this, and its own weight and its own acceleration E2 like this. So we have the equation that this is an inertial ground frame, wedge of mass m2. So this normal reaction, the normal reaction that the floor will apply, and mg, these are the forces. I'll see that this angle theta here will be equal to this angle theta. So V2. So we have n sine theta is equal to m2a2. Mass is m2. And n cos theta plus so this equation is not really so useful. This equation will be. So we have equation 1, equation 2. This will basically give us 4 by 5 n is equal to, now mass of this one was I think 5. So 5e2. Get this equation. And next I will make the free body diagram of the rod. So the rod will be experiencing again two normal reactions, but one from the wedge. So that will be in this sort of direction. See, this one and this one, they are an action reaction pair. This, okay, but the wall will also be pushing it. It's a normal reaction like this, let's say. Normal reaction that the wall is applying, and of course it has its own weight. And in the inertial frame, this is going down with an acceleration E1. So of mass M1. This is inertial frame. So once again, you can see that when you draw the proper free body diagram with forces from like this, see this angle is theta. This is accelerating downwards. So the equation for this one's downward motion becomes m1g minus n cos theta is equal to m1 e1. So m1 was 1 kg. So 10 minus 3 by 5 n is equal to e1. So this becomes our third equation. So make a note of these and solve these equations now to find a1 and a2. So in this page, you can see the constraint relation that E1 is equal to 4 by 3A2, that is coming from above, okay, where we had made the geometrical constraint using the diagram. discussed about it now. Okay, so let's look at the solving. So from the above relation, if we substitute here this, we have A1 is equal to 4 by 3 A2. So A1 from here is how much? It is 10 minus 3 by 5 N, because remember theta was 53 degrees. And on the other side, A2 in this equation from here is 4 by 25 N. So this will become 15 into 345 plus 16. So that is 45, 55 plus 6, 61 by 75 N. 10. So N comes out to be 750 by 61. That's almost 12.3 newtons. So accordingly, now we will get A1 as with A1 close to
Sir, 1.9.
hmm, yeah, about 1.97.
Yes.
Okay, so these are the values of A1 and A2. So this is a further more complicated type of question involving what we call the wedge constraint along with free body diagrams. Okay, so now we're moving on to some more questions. Now we'll go back to some examples of thread length conservation type of constraint questions. Okay, and finish writing first. Okay, so then let's move on to, yeah, we'll discuss about spring force also at the end of today's lecture. Don't worry. Spring force is something relatively quite simple, Siddharth. Now let's go back to a constraint type of problem, thread length conservation type of constraint problem. So usually these are the questions that can be a little bit more tricky. Okay, so all the pulleys are massless, smooth pulleys as usual, and the thread is also massless and inextensible. So mass of the block A is equal to mass of the block B. They are identical blocks of mass 5 kilograms each. So find the accelerations of each block and the tension in the thread. It is a fixed ceiling. So just try out the free body diagram and constraint relation concept we'll discuss. Yes, Siddharth, the constraint relation is correct. Very good. Provided you have taken A1 as the acceleration of block capital A and A2 as the acceleration of block B.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so that's correct. Now go ahead and solve the free body diagrams. Okay, so let's verify this. So first of all, what you can understand is that if this has an acceleration of, let's say, AB and this has an acceleration of AA, then acceleration of A will be 3 times acceleration of B. This is the thread length constraint. As you can see, if B goes down by X, then it pulls 3X amount of thread. Okay. So you can see in this sort of diagram that so after some time, if B together with the pulley has come down through a distance of, let's say, Y, then it has pulled Y plus Y plus Y, 3Y amount of thread. So if this moves by X at that time, X has to be equal to 3Y. Has to release 3Y amount of thread, so X is equal to 3Y. So that from that we get this constraint relation. Now from the FBD of inertial ground frame of E, you can see T is equal to, so that is T is equal to 5 times acceleration of E. And from B's free body diagram, you can see weight of B minus 3T is mass into acceleration. So 5G minus 3T is equal to 5 times 3T. So that's our third equation. Okay. Now we can substitute acceleration of A as 3 times acceleration of B here. So this becomes P is equal to 15 AB. And then substitute that here. So 5G minus this. Okay. So we get 45 plus 550 times acceleration of B is equal to 5G. So I'm getting acceleration of B as G by 10. Therefore, acceleration of A as 3G by 10. And therefore, tension in the thread as 5 into 3G by 10. So 1.5G or 15 newtons. Okay, one of you have got that. I was just going through the answers. Yeah, Siddharth, you got this correct. So acceleration of B, you can see, will become 1 meter per second square, taking G as 10. The acceleration of A is therefore 3 meters per second square. So this is an important type of question, okay, involving constraint relation. So make sure you note this down. Yeah, tension remains same, Siddharth, because it's the same thread. Huh? So it's a massless thread. So tension will be same at all points in magnitude.
Sir, if we take mass of B different or of mass of A, then also it will be same.
Yeah, that is to tensions being same has to do with the fact that the thread is massless. Remember, whenever we have a massless thread or string, the tension is uniform. We had discussed about that, right?
So done.
Yeah. So hope this question was clear, people.
Yes, so
Okay, so with this we conclude Newton's laws and today's session. Next lecture we will start with friction. Okay, but also like I have not received any request for discussing the doubts from HC Verma, so I'm assuming either that you have completed it or you are still in the process of completing it. But from whatever you've completed so far, you've not got any doubts. So next lecture, just try to complete
Sir?
HC Verma questions from Newton's laws before that and discuss the doubts. Yes, people.
Sir, in the previous session, I have told you a doubt of spring force. You have told that you will discuss that
Yeah.
topic of concept and then you will solve the question today.
Yes. We will discuss the spring force later. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, just leave out the question of spring force for the moment. We'll discuss it. Okay. Yes, happy Diwali to all of you in advance. Okay. So you will of course have a.
Sir, but we haven't done spring force, so how will we be able to solve it?
I will teach about spring force. Okay. So leave out the question involving spring force. There are just a couple of questions in HC Verma right now. Okay.
So, sir, you are solving the question now, or you will solve it the next class?
Today's class is done, people. We will discuss spring force in the next lecture along with the beginning of friction. But also by then try to complete HC Verma. There are just a couple of questions in spring force in the beginning of the HC Verma exercise, which I had pointed out in the last lecture. So we will discuss spring force at a later time. I want you people to complete the other questions of HC Verma, which have constraint relations and pseudo force and all that. There are very large number of questions. So make sure last time we have discussed only about up to the 16th question. Okay, whereas I think there are about close to 35 problems or something. So make sure you work out those questions.
So total 42 questions are there.
42 questions. There you go, right? Friction also has a large number of questions. So these two chapters are big chapters in terms of number of questions. Okay. Even kinematics for that matter has a large number of questions. I think close to 50 something questions kinematics has. So anyway, so other than the couple of questions of spring force, which are actually basically very simple questions, but we'll discuss about spring force. I don't want to confuse you with too many things right now. I want you to first practice out all questions related to constraint relations and pseudo force, which will come in these questions. So please try this out and we'll discuss in the next lecture.
Okay, sir. Bye, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay.
Bye, sir. Thank you, sir. Happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali in advance.
Happy Diwali, sir.